right, boys, thank you for clicking on the video. So yes, you can tell maybe by the title or the thumbnail, I have got a mod that I've wanted to do for an extremely long time on the C5 Z06. Now, as you may or may not know, if you don't follow KnightDriveTV, I have C6 Z06 brakes on here. These brakes actually date back to a car that I had on the Speed Channel in 2010. And it was like sentimental to me to have these brakes on here, but the time has come maybe to do something different. And so we bought these used. In this video, I'm going to talk about these brakes. We're going to talk about buying ZR1 stuff, C6 ZR1 stuff used online and see what the outcome is. I'm going to unbox it with you. So did I get ripped off? Who knows, but hopefully not. Later part of the video, we're going to get into talking about development of the lights, and if you've been keeping along, we're chugging up in production yet again, and man, it is looking good. So you're going to be happy with this video. Stick around. You're watching KnightDriveTV.
I always wanted to build fast cars, so self-taught I started with engine swaps, composites in my apartment, to multiple shops, tuning, fabrication, and more. 10 years later, the big time, SEMA, Speed TV, I climbed from nothing, but I lost it all. This is my new ride, KnightDriveTV. When failure is not an option, us car guys keep banging the gears of life.
Alrighty, so let me pull out my favorite. I'm gonna have something like this. I'm developing this pocket knife. Don't ask me why, but let's go ahead and unbox. Let's see what we got. Hopefully, now the interactions I had with the seller, to let everybody know, I didn't use PayPal. I didn't use any method that I have a dispute capability, and people were like, oh, are you crazy? Well, if you checked out my scammer video, check it out here. I think you should watch it because it's talking about a lot of these scam sellers that are selling used parts online, and you really have to be careful who you buy from, really want to vet them, really want to talk to them about the process. And I guess we'll find out if I'm good at vetting my own purchases, because I can't get a refund. I can't do anything. So, oh boy, there they are. So yeah, I sent the money by Zelle. I don't suggest anybody do this unless you're extremely confident. And I'm going to talk about how to feel confident in this video, but those are some big calipers right there. So packaging looks pretty good. I'm going to show it to you here. And so overall, I think we look good. Now, I knew that they were going to have a few scrapes and scratches. These are used, and the brake lines are connected, so that's pretty cool. But there we go. Dang. that's oh yeah, they're definitely, they're not the prettiest, but shout out, and I'm going to ask you, there was a guy named Pilot Mike or something in Atlanta. He used to powder coat. He doesn't do it anymore. He was a pilot for like an airline, but he did powder coating, and man, he did the logos and everything so good. If you're a powder coater, or if you know anybody that's a powder coater and you could put them in the comment section or refer them to KnightDriveTV, I would love to have these refinished. And so I could wrap them, I could paint them, but I would love to powder coat them, something cool. So throw that below, but here we go. We have got one massive caliper. I'm going to put this next to my Z06 caliper. I'm really curious what the size difference is, but these are the fronts. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, right? Sometimes you get something in the wheel that can kind of chew things up. Though, what will we get? What will we end up with? Toyota Camry rears? I don't know. Hopefully not. Alrighty, these are much nicer. They survived a little better. They're in good shape. I was wondering about that. A lot of the retaining clips, he's got all packed. Got all the top bridges and everything to basically hold the pads down. He's got them all packed into this one. So it looks like we didn't get ripped off. So not yet anyway, because, well, obviously what I didn't reveal in the thumbnail is I didn't just get calipers. Yes, I got the rotors as well. So you might have been thinking, was he going to run irons? So you can run, if you have a Carbon Z06, if you have a ZR1, obviously if you get a set of these, there is a company that makes iron rotors that can go on C6 ZR1s. And it's because the consumable cost here, if you run carbons on track, especially with kind of inadequate cooling can go a long way with carbon ceramic life, with brake life in general. So good ducting. The cars really don't have great ducting from the factory. You can definitely go way further. But you can get an iron rotor setup for these calipers and take the carbons off. Now you're going to gain unsprung weight, but your consumable cost is going to go down. You can run normal pads, but I did get the carbon rotors as well, and they are used. So this is where it gets sketchy. Alrighty. Yeah, so let me go ahead. I'm going to use my phone here just to kind of give you a quick glimpse. So he has packed these with like a pool noodle, it looks like, and I mean, he definitely did some extensive cushioning, and that's the thing with these, you know, you don't want to chip them or anything, so he did a pretty good job. I mean, everything is pretty tucked in here. So let's go ahead and pull them out and hope they're in one piece, because first and foremost, you want them to get here, arrive alive. Great packaging. I mean, hey, you know, he did what he said he would do. I'll go ahead and switch this. We'll sit this here. Now, I know what you may be thinking. How do you know carbon ceramic rotors are good? How do you take the chance? Nothing else in there. Well, I will tell you what he did was, if you could see that label there, he did weigh them. And on the hats, they say made in Italy from Brembo, they have the minimum weights. So he did weigh them. In examining the holes, I will say the holes are not filled with a bunch of dust. People talk about if you buy carbon ceramic rotors and the holes are filled with dust and you weigh them, because to understand, iron rotors are pretty much always thickness, grooves. These are kind of similar. It's thickness. It is chunkiness on the surface and how bad they get, how rough they get. But with these, it's weight. You have to weigh the rotor. It depletes basically in density. So it has a rated weight on the hat, and it tells you. And then he weighed them separately. So you want the holes cleared out. You want them all blown out. You don't want any brake dust, if you will, carbon dust, whatever comes off. These actually dust very little. Yeah, so he weighed these. So minimum weight is 7,215 grams. So I'll put that on screen what that weighs in pounds or whatnot. And then the current weight he has is 7,281 grams. This is super light. This is going to take off so much weight off the corner of the car. And this allows your damper. So understand, your coilover, your spring, is pushing the tire into the ground while it's also supporting the body. So the reason they call it unsprung weight is because everything is above the spring, the body, your whole car, the chassis, the motor, the engine. But underneath the spring is your lower control arm, your braking package, your tire, things like that. That becomes unsprung weight. You can really feel dramatic differences in how a car behaves when you reduce unsprung weight. So this is huge for feel and for allowing the damper and the spring to really keep the tire in contact with the ground. That you might be thinking, front rotors are always more weight and weigh more than rear rotors. And that's pretty common sense, right? Because front rotors are much bigger than rear rotors. It's actually backwards. The rear brakes weigh more than the front, and the front rotors are bigger. So basically, looking at the weight difference, I think probably the main contributing issue is that the hats are larger on the rears, and mostly because the emergency brake and thing goes inside of the hat. So there's a lot more hat material, and so it's really showing you how substantial the aluminum center hat is impacting the weight, and that's very interesting. He wrapped them in pool noodles. And they are indeed definitely lighter. So for comparison, the minimum weight on these is 59.44, and that's listed right here on the hat. The minimum weight for this one is 59.32. And you're like, well, wait a second. Why would the front rotor be different than the other front rotor? Well, that's where we get into some uniqueness when it comes to carbon ceramic brakes. So literally each individual hat is matched to its rotor, and it then produces a minimum weight for replacement. So if you were to potentially switch these or take these apart and put the hats on wrong, you would probably end up with kind of a unique situation. So Yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a look at everything. I'm just kind of scanning the rotor for any damage, things like that. Much better than a lot I've seen, quite honestly. It does have a little bit of dust, no scoring. Not seeing anything from like depleted pads or anything like that. The current weight on this one is 6,020 grams. On this one, it is 6,001 grams. So I'm gonna put the weights on the screen there. So that's substantially lighter than the rears. And these are a ½ inch larger in diameter. What I had told you before is it's great to know the weight, but what is the starting weight? You know what I mean? What do you get to consume to understand what percentage of life you have left? And what do you need to look for beyond the weight to be sure that you buy some carbon ceramic brakes that aren't junk? Okay, so let's talk about, are the brakes I bought garbage? Because obviously with the front rotors here, if you have to replace one of these, they're like $1,500. So basically, if I haven't mentioned it, I paid $5,500 for this setup, which it costs a lot more than that to purchase from GM, and it's kind of rare to get people to take these entire setups off of their ZR1. Okay, so let's go over some kind of facts when it comes to inspecting these front rotors, and then I'll kind of show you the inspection procedures. So these are the spec limits as outlined by GM. So the front rotor new is 36 millimeters thick. So I'll put that conversion on screen. When they're done, they're 35.5 millimeters thick. So you have a 0.5 millimeter variation, that's all, of degradation of the surface before they're done. So that's not that much. Rear thickness, 34 millimeters, done, ½ millimeter lower than that. I guess they want to check them basically in multiple locations, so they say the max deviation is 0.2 millimeters. So that would be pretty substantial considering you're only getting ½ a millimeter from start to finish. So probably not likely. Pads start at 10 millimeters thick and their limits come down at 2 millimeters. They say you should replace them. Let me talk about the weights real quick. So I'm looking right here. The front rotor, 5932 grams is the minimum. He has it at 6,001 grams. What I have been able to find and determine is it seems like each rotor, brand new, has somewhere between about 193 grams above the minimum spec weight when they're new. So basically, we'll just call it like 90. So if there's 90 grams available to deplete, then I'm going to basically be able to calculate a percentage of lifespan that I have in these rotors. Okay, so basically I'm going to measure maybe just 2 points on the surface here. And, you know, I'm obviously going to use very light gauging pressure. Gauging pressure, very important. So I'm just going to kind of go until that's it. There's just light clicks. I'm going to rock it a little bit, make sure I have good, decent contact. Okay, so looking closely at this, I am at 1.416. So that's where we're at with the thickness, 1.416. Well, I guess I could do another position and just see if it's even possible to get any kind of major variation or deviation. Oh boy, maybe. No, I mean, literally no variation at all. All right, so let's get into the pads. And I will tell you, I swear this thing of pads is as heavy as those two front rotors, but it's not. God, you ain't kidding. Newer and older. I don't know what that means. It says front pads, newer and older. Holy good God almighty, those are some big pads. Jeez. Oh my God. I can't believe it. Holy crap, that thing is huge. For perspective, my Samsung S22, that's what you're rolling with on your brake pads. These used ones, I do see a little pad taper on these. With that being said, let's kind of go over the specs. I'm going to get next to my car. I'm going to kind of break everything down for you. C5 Z06 brakes to C6 Z06 brakes to these brakes. What kind of unsprung weight change are we talking about? What kind of weight difference are we talking about? Diameter difference, things like that. And how much I gain in braking power here for actually less weight than the original brakes on the C5 Z06. That's crazy. When we get into track people, people who are very aggressive, HPDEs, doing track days, time attack. Look, they're all going to disagree with basically all the OEM brakes. You can find the limits in C6 Z06 calipers. Many people have done it. Obviously, AP brakes, Willwoods even, you know, these are brakes that really have been put on GT3 level cars, developed extensively, AP specifically. So, you know, you are dealing with the highest echelon of iron brakes. And so when it comes to a mass-produced car, even though Brembo is making a lot of this stuff, you know, there's still a cost factor in there. So with these, it was a big difference. So let me go ahead and give you kind of some comparisons. I have some notes here, just wanted to kind of, just to give you perspective. So the C5 Z06 front rotors are 13-inch from the factory, or 12-inch from the rear. When I went up to the C6 Z06, that brought me up to 14-inch fronts and 13.4-inch rears. So my rears were bigger than my original fronts, and my fronts were obviously an inch larger in diameter. So the carbon ceramics coming from the Z06, which is now 14 inches, 1 inch larger than stock, the carbon ceramic fronts are 15.5 inches, which is 394 millimeters. The rears are 15, so 380s in the rear. So now my rears are 1 inch bigger than my fronts. So let's talk about weight. Weight in the rotors. So the C5 Z06 original rotor is 19.5 pounds. That's a 13-inch front rotor. The rears are 14 pounds as a 12-inch rear rotor. So when I came up to the C6 Z06 setup, inevitably because they're iron brakes, I'm going to gain a little unsprung weight. I knew that at the time, but I was gaining a lot of braking force, a lot of swept volume, things like that. So C6 Z06 front brakes, front rotors are 25.6 pounds. So I obviously gained about, 5.5 pounds from stock. And then the rears are 21.1 pounds. So I gained almost, 7.1 pounds from stock with the C6 Z06 setup. So definitely brought things up. So I'm at 25.6 in the front. I'm at 21.1 in the rear. With the ZR1 setup, the front rotors, which are bigger, 15.5 inch versus 14, these being 25.6, the ZR1 front rotors are 13.5 pounds. That's unbelievable. And the rears, like I said, actually way more, 16 pounds. So the rears of the ZR1 15-inch rotors are actually a little bit more weight than the 12-inch original C5 Z06 rears. So I'm still gaining, obviously, a little bit of unsprung weight over stock because my calipers are going to add a bit of weight for sure over the rears. But the amount of braking power is just uncomparable. But up front, like I said, I'm at 13.5 pounds with ZR1 front rotors versus the C5Z was 19.5. Now the calipers, again, are probably going to balance that out. So at best, I would assume, without having everything here to kind of weigh, I'm probably at kind of a break even with this car originally. So that's the way it is, you know what I mean? Unsprung weight, this is why C5Zs, you know what I mean? They were good because they were the lightest, the earliest, you know what I mean? The C6 Z06 stepped up in a lot of ways, power, things like that, and they really fought with the aluminum subframe and things like that to kind of keep the car light. But inevitably, the C5 Z06, of the three, I would say, Dave Hill architecture cars, C5, C6, C7, the C5Z, I mean, look, it just starts at the lowest weight. It's the simplest car, and so inevitably, we have a huge amount more braking power. So the question becomes, are they going to fit behind my Forge Stars? And are they going to fit behind my secret wheels? So yes, here we are with my secret wheels. I don't know what I love more. No, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I almost said I don't know what I love more. Yes, I do. I love these more. Even though carbon ceramics are sicker, I think this is just, the lust for these was longer in my life to have one of these, and I had a set of these, but they're much smaller for a different car. But so these are 18 by 11s. This is a plus 37, and as you can see here, these are the wheels and the offsets that I'm going to build the KnightDriveTV 3D designed C5 Corvette front and rear wide body from. So this is basically putting them outside the fender nearly 2 inches, and so basically it's a 4-inch track width increase. And that's a front and rear situation. So this is a square setup, 18 by 11 square. That's what I'm building everything to. So The question is will all this fit behind that? Because the C6 ZR1 came with 19-inch front wheels. So the best I can determine is that with an OEM style wheel, like a C6 Z06 18-inch front, will definitely not fit over the ZR1 wheels. You have to go to kind of an OEM style 19. But there are people that have C6 ZR1s with carbon brakes, 18-inch Ford Star CF5s. I've seen some other type of racing kind of, race duty HPDE wheels. So I think these are going to fit. It is going to be something you're going to have to catch in the next video. So not the very next video, because it's going to take a second. So yeah, I'm hoping, because it's really going to impact my build, and I'm really focusing on the corners of the car. So it's about the wheel I've always wanted. It's about the brakes I've always wanted, and it's about the suspension I always wanted. And so that is coming to KnightDriveTV. I am in development with a company to create, through a partnership, a suspension setup for Corvettes that is something that's never been brought. And so it's going to be a process. I really regret or hesitate to say too much about it, because anything can happen in a development process. I merely want to build the car I want to build, and my goal here is to slowly create everything for a C5Z, to create the ultimate C5Z that I wanted, kind of like a GT3 Porsche for the street, not necessarily an RS, maybe later, but like a GT3. I want a focused car, a little sharper, everything just brought up a couple levels, keep it light. That's what I'm about. And so if I can do a little bit at a time, carbon panels, suspension, this is kind of my overall chess game that I'm playing for you guys to kind of get an insight, and there's a lot to it. So let's kind of get into what I kind of know directly from Taj Juchter, and he was asked about this. Obviously, you can bolt on C6 Z06 calipers. All these calipers, the bolt patterns were the same, C6 ZR1. It all bolts right up. There's a little variation with brake lines, but other than that, this stuff bolts right on. It's no big deal. Now, you have to question if the C5 Z06 had, obviously they were in the era of CAD and stress analysis and stuff when they designed these cars. So they kind of, I'm sure, did some type of strain analysis to determine, is the knuckle strong enough, because you're imparting huge loads, obviously. When you have all that rotational mass and that thing clamps down, it's just going to want to tear that spindle into shreds, you know what I mean? So you have forces that are going to basically have to hold on to that caliper, connect that to the spindle. So the question became, can the spindle handle it? Now, here's the debate. So there's lots of guys running these in Spec Corvette. There's tons of guys that have been tracking these, Optima Challenge, things like that. They're putting on AP brake setups and things like that. And I assume, I think it's safe to assume, tons of those guys are running on stock spindles. So I don't think it's a question of failure. I think they're adequate, and I think that there's plenty of meat there to support the braking forces. I think what comes down to the nitty-gritty is deflection and things like that. Things can hold the forces, but it comes down to structural stiffness. This all boiled down basically to me finding that a guy named Pumbaa, screen name, obviously, it's not his real name, who did this setup many years back. And it's funny, when he did it, I was in the thread. I was crazy. I was like reading my old screen name, and I was like, holy crap, I was sitting there saying, it's my dream to have carbon rotors. So anyway, he ended up going to Carlisle and talking to Taj Juchter. And so that is what Taj Juchter confirmed, is there is an issue of deflection. So they increased the stiffness of the spindle, changed the design slightly to avoid what was essentially pad taper. So that's where the issue comes into play. I think they're fine to run on here. I think it's just your consumable cost may go up, and the consumable cost is already high. So you don't want to wear anything beyond the norm with these brakes. But for me, doing the setup that I'm doing, wide body brakes, I just have this vision of what I want this car to be, and it's been in my head for freaking 10 years. And it's evolved, obviously, a little bit, but I'm like, I just want to do this, you know what I mean? I just want to see this through. So and another absurd, some people don't agree with me, it's not absurd, but SEMA has, always been that grand stage. I always felt like if you're in the automotive business, if you're in the aftermarket, you just have to get a piece of yourself, a piece of your company there, just to say, I don't know, that you got to the top tier in the sense and made your presence known and your little mark in whatever way possible. And so for me, I've always wanted to have this car there. And so the car I was there with in 2010, of course, I ran that company. I was a partner of that company. But the decisions of what that car looked like and some details about it, because I was not the sole finance, I had to listen to someone else's decisions. I made a lot of decisions about that car that I think led to it being better, but it wasn't going to be, it was going to be a compromise, I can tell you that, because what my guy wanted was not what I wanted to be at SEMA standing next to. So, you know, it was that made me next year. I got this car in 2011. I said, man, I'm just going to bring that car. I talked to wheel companies. I tried to do things, but moving and going around the country, and before you know it, 10 years passes by. So I want this car at SEMA in 2023. And I want it to truly represent my creativity in my mind and what I've wanted to do with this car, putting TE37s on it, having the suspension that I want, the brakes that I want, the wide body that I want, the details that you're going to see coming ahead in KnightDriveTV in 2023 that I want. So that's the story on C6 ZR1 brakes on C5 Z06. I think it's going to be awesome. Master cylinder stuff, we'll see. Obviously, the master cylinder on the C6 Z06 is a lot more volume push than these, so I could have some pedal. You have more leverage per se, maybe, because of a smaller diameter. I haven't really researched the specs. Don't hold me to. I haven't researched the master cylinder variations. So, as I am aware of, the people that I know that tracked C6 ZR1 brakes, and like I said, there's only one I know of. He ran on stock master cylinder, no issues. So we should be fine. So, with that said, it's 12:20 in the morning. So let me go ahead and update you on the business. We are rolling with the rounds, but I hurt myself just now. But I don't know if I want to keep making the rounds. I might limit them. I don't know why. I'm already working on some other. I don't know, man. Let's go upstairs. Let me just show you where we're at. We're making a bunch. Everything's rolling. We're back in progress with the best kit yet. I've got some other stuff I really want to release before the end of the year. I just don't know if I'll make it, but stick with me. Let's go check out the business. Kelsey's come along pretty well. She's happy. She's pumped. She likes being here. So I think she's good. Check it out. Alrighty, we're getting set up. Looks good. We got it working. Got it working. You know what I'm saying?
What the hell happened?
What do you mean? What? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's what happened. I suppose it's the dangers of having an oven in a 3D printing business. That's what I'm labeling it as. So basically, over the past 2 days, we've built some test kits. They're just tiny evolutions of just tweaks. And so I think we built maybe 3 the first day, built 4 yesterday, and she is on a run to try and do 10 today. So she has got, I don't know what that's on, that's weird. So she is working at it to see what the outcome is going to be, what kind of pace. Obviously, she's just kind of starting with a new system, so obviously after a month or so to get a lot quicker. But that is where we're at. Okay, so the deal is, you were asking about the squares. Hey, you're making all these rounds, and all these rounds out there. What's the deal with the rounds? Why no squares? So we have a set of squares here. The deal is I moved these down 5 millimeters. So visually, I want to make sure that the squares still, I like where they're at. The only other thing is I'm going to redesign the pods, because we have the new fastening system. So these little pods that are inside for the squares are not designed to accept those screws. So that's a little change we're going to make. So I'm going to just build probably about a week worth of these, and then we'll put these out and we'll catch up. We're catching up quickly, so just calm down. So some of you have been asking about the the new mounts. So this replaced the metal stops. These are simple. They just slide into the back. The O faces the windshield, and this sets the new stopping point. And so these are going to be available on the website. So that covers that. Some of you have been waiting on brackets. A couple people had some incidents, wrecks, and some broken things for whatever reason. So I have those finally coming out. Everything's been backed up, so we're underway. So all I can say is it is midnight, just a little bit past now. I got all the machines running. We got lots of kits ready to go, so we're going to get those boxed to get those ready to go out. So there are some of you out there, which I may name, but I know Cole McBeans is one for sure. So yeah, we're going to be shipping some kits. I'm glad they could kind of finally go out to you guys, and it's been a lot of work. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. So it's just kind of the work area up here. We got a Keurig for Kelsey up here, and we're grabbing some lights. We're going to get these ready for shipment. Also got some brackets. Well, Lace is preparing for shipment, and we're going to try and get these sent out. Got a bad feeling though.
Why? Why?
Because the U-line foam shipment isn't here. Do we have enough, or am I going to order right now? Order right now? Okay. Lucky for me, U-line is quick, and they come pretty quick, but it's just, things are getting over me, just piling up in this kind of move in SEMA and resurge and kind of reorientation of things. And so looking forward to getting through this bump. I'm almost through it. So we're going to order from U-line, get some foam here. It only takes a day. So that puts the shipments out on Tuesday. And that's pretty much the day we always ship anyway. I was hoping to get them out tomorrow, but it's probably going to end up being Tuesday or Wednesday at latest. But they are on the way, and we'll be freight training through the week, making a bunch of kits. So we get that ordered. Okay, so it is 12:12 at 12:50 or so p.m. It is Monday. So we're going to be getting these shipments out. Have about 14 that are going out today, waiting on foam that's supposed to come in. We'll have 6 more go out tomorrow. And then this week's production, obviously last week kind of pre-production, just moving into the phase of getting things rolling. We did 20 plus a few test kits, which I'm going to release the new install video. And then this week we're going to probably target about 40 and work our way up into the 60 per week. So we should catch up pretty quick. Obviously some of this is going to be a mix of rounds and squares. Squares will be reshipping. I just have to go through kind of a final check on everything. So they are headed out to you guys, and there's quite a few of you out there have been waiting, been emailing me. I've been trying to keep up with the emails as best I can, but they are coming. So that's about it for this long video that I really didn't want to upload for some reason. It just, once I edited it, I looked at it, and I'm like, God, it's just so much. And I almost wanted to reshoot it again, but I just don't have the time. So that's it. Whatever you extracted from this, always use the chapters to jump around, and I hope that's enough, and I'll catch you on the